So today on the podcast, guys, we'll be talking about women in prison. Now, I've been trying to get this done for a while, and I'm so fortunate that my guest today has come on and we've been able to put this together. The problem. Women make up around 4% of the total prison population, which in itself doesn't sound like a lot. But as of November 2023, there was 3,611 women in prison in the UK. This is predicted to rise. Okay, so projections suggest that by November 2027, up to 4,200 women will be in prison. Now, as we know, this is a patriarchal society. Women are not treated fairly or equally anywhere in society, and that is no different in the criminal justice system. Women are treated more harshly. They are underrepresented at every level, from the police force up to the judiciary. Prisons are not safe places for women. Women engage in more self-harm, suffer from more mental health, have other factors like domestic abuse. The reasons for female and male offending behavior are quite different. Okay, so men tend to engage in risk-taking, impulsive behavior, and that leads to their criminal offending behavior, whilst women are always having to deal with extra things. So we're looking at things like poverty, unsafe or unsuitable housing, poor mental health, once again, domestic abuse, substance abuse, and actually more research needs to be done on offending behavior and the effect of menstrual cycles. Because as women, we deal with hormones, which is something that men don't have to deal with. Okay, so what have the government done to try to address this? Because in 2007, in Style Prison, 11 women took their own lives. Now, that was a record. But the self-harm, the suicidal intention, it's all there. In 2018, the government outlined a female offender strategy, which is supposed to be a gender-informed approach to improve outcomes for female offenders, all right? So custody, and I said it on the last podcast with Sherelle, should be a last resort. It should be reserved for the most serious offences, and the recommendation is early intervention to support women with their offending behaviour in community settings. Okay? The criminal justice system is actually going against its own remit, all right? More women than ever are being sent to prison. Up to 69% of these women have committed non-violent offences, okay? So non-violent, no harm to anyone else. The use of remand, so that is putting women in prison before they're found guilty, okay? 72% of these women go on to not receive prison sentences, all right? Over half, 58% of prison sentences given to women are less than 6 months. So going back to what I said about this female offender strategy, should be a last resort, reserved for the most serious offences, okay? These offences, the most common was theft from shops, which makes up 36% of the less than 6 month sentence. And I would suggest that a lot of women are sent to prison on bullshit charges, like not paying TV licenses. Men are also sent to prison for bullshit, but not to the same degree as women, okay? Now, I'm going to quickly outline, before I introduce this lovely guest, some of the reasons, right? So in the criminal justice system, similar to society, there are these embedded expectations of women, okay? We're supposed to be nurturers, carers, law-abiding, passive, submissive. And if not, it's very hard for women to be believed and even viewed as victims. Women are more likely to have violence committed against them, and they're also more likely not to contact the police, all right? So women's reality is often denied, okay? So at this point, I just want to bring this wonderful guest on. She's sitting there looking very vibrant. So Empress, welcome to the Alphabet Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, man. And that sum up, boy, got my brain like, whoop, yeah.
It's a lot, girl. But
A
before
lot to think about.
it's a lot, isn't it? So before we even start, I want you to introduce yourself, tell the podcast, you know, what you do and what you're passionate about, and where they can find you, more importantly.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Reasoning with Empress Lee. I am an advocate for women in prison by default. I've been doing this for a long time. You can find me on TikTok, which is my main platform, quite a lot of videos and content on there. And then I've also got my YouTube channel, which is also Reasoning with Empress Lee. Again, it's a lot of deep content on YouTube as well. So yeah, so you can find me.
Okay. And this is very important. I actually found her on TikTok. Yeah. I actually jumped into the DMs. Yeah. I was like, you know, when you keep getting on your FYP page, you keep getting people coming up, and I found myself, even though I'm someone that is hard to keep my attention, you know, I always was drawn to your videos, Lee. So, you know, I met you to this day are still the only person I've ever DM'd on any social media platform to say anything.
I remember when you did it, and I said to you, because you was like, thank you for like getting back to me. Like, I wasn't going to do it. And I was like, no, you need to message me. Like, why are you people doing this? You need to contact me. Like, what to do? Do you know what I mean?
But Lee, before I start with, you know, some of the things that I really want to pick your brain about, I just want to outline to the podcast. So I quickly outlined in the intro, you know, how bad the situation is for women. We're more likely to be, you know, put in prison for bullshit. And, you know, really and truly, I think most people understand that, you know, all of the systemic stuff, it goes through all of the systems, the patriarchy. But, you know, you might really be surprised, you know, to hear that the outcomes are even worse for Black women. All right. So it follows the trend all the way. So women tend to suffer more than men. Yeah. Black women tend to suffer more than white women per se.
Absolutely.
All right. So, you know, this is serious. Okay. So it starts. So I always like stats to just paint a picture. All right. But Black female children, you know, are 3 times or 2.7, nearly 3 times more likely to be stopped and searched. Mm-hmm. Okay. So over 40% of all of the young females stopped and searched between 21 and 22 were Black girls. All right. Yeah. You know, so we're more likely than other women to be remanded or sentenced. 25% more, actually.
Yep, we've seen those.
Yeah. We're more likely to be sole parents. We're more likely to not feel safe in jail. So I just wanted to recap that because it's experience. Now, just to get that, because it's a lot of information. But thinking about your experiences with the criminal justice system, Lee, right from the very beginning, do you believe you were treated fairly, and do you believe your sentence was fair, and why?
Do I think I was treated fairly? It's a hard one. I feel like based on the case, I feel like the judge did the best he could do. But as a woman, no, because when you look at how many women a judge actually watches walk through a court, you know, a court, and stand in that dock, the amount of women, you know, the amount of stories, the amount of character references that you hear of the same thing repeated over and over again. So ultimately, no, there is no fairness, because you're not looking at the root cause of the problem to try and find a solution. This is just about punishment and financial gain. Do you know what I mean? So absolutely not. No, I don't think that, oh, it was fair.
That's fair.
Because the impacts of you know, that decision is why we're here now.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
And I did say, guys, that, you know, women are more likely to be sent to prison on some bullshit charges. And Lee, just for the purpose of the podcast, please tell, every time you say this, it's like it deletes from my brain because it is so made up that I've never heard of it.
Yeah. So I was sent to prison for an evasion of prohibition, which falls in line in their eyes with a conspiracy to import Class A drugs, right? However, that's not the charge. The charge is an evasion prohibition. And the only reason why I know that is because it's what's stated on my CRB. And it's what was stated in the paperwork. And I was like, but what is that? You know, what is that? And I've forever questioned, what is that?
You know what I think about it? I'm like, in all my years of dealing with the criminal justice system, speaking to women that have been to prison and had issues with the police, I've never heard of it.
So what that is in hindsight, it's knowing something and not telling the police. So that's what I actually went to prison and got a 6-year sentence for, was for knowing something and not telling the police, which without having to say too much, you know, who couldn't that happen to? Who could it not happen to?
Yeah. Especially when you think of us as a community in particular, that we don't really have those kind of interactions with the police per se anyway. So it's not.
Absolutely. And the freeness, like, you know, like just the like just the way that it's easy for them to separate mothers from their children.
Yeah.
For me, it's going back to what you're saying about the high percentage of women that have non-violent crimes. I spent a lot of time with women in that system that had children. I had to go above and beyond for my own mental health by supporting their mental health based on the fact that we were separated from our children. It's not just cut the cord and there you go. Like, that is a lifetime thing. I've seen traumas of parents, and it was so comforting in a sense, because I could understand why I was doing it. I used to hold my stomach when I was like really hurting, and it's a lot to do with that connection, that connection between mother and child, there's nothing to support that when you're in the system. You're treated just like the men, because the prison system is designed for men. So there's no special, way of being treated when you're a woman or when you're a mother. They may give you a family visit once a month or every couple, but that is it. So maintaining that, that's a trauma in itself, because giving birth to a child is a trauma. My daughter was born 7 weeks early, so she was £3.10, and that was my first child. And and I didn't think I could have children. So we're talking about layers of trauma pre-prison, and then not having enough time to adjust to being in prison and that separation. It was a lot to deal with. I crashed out, literally. I was abusing substances I'd never even heard of, to be honest with you, because it was a lot. It was a lot, and that's just how I dealt with my trauma at that time. I didn't know what to do, and sometimes when you're sitting in that cell for like 14 hours, the amount of thinking that you do is like, it does take you back to your trauma. So, and I met a lot of women that understood their sentences and stuff, because they'd now been incarcerated. Do you know what I mean? And they had the time to go back to the original traumas that led to these things. So, when people have this stigma, like, oh, women that go to prison, and that this is so sad, because if you understood the backstories of 99% of these women, you'd be in tears like 99% of the time.
Yeah. And I think that's what struck me during my relatively short time in prison. It was just that, the amount of women, I thought I'd had quite a bad time in life. I had quite a lot of trauma. And here I am going to prison where people have gone through 10 times the amount of trauma. And it's like, it's almost like they don't even know what they've been through. They just, like you say, find a way to cope. And, some of these ways are not entirely legal. And now these women are criminalized, for this poor mental health, or this substance abuse, or this domestic abuse. And it's just absolutely shocking. So,
you talk about people like us that actually, we speak English. You've got women in there that don't speak no English. Then, they're not even from this country. They've committed a crime, so to speak, and now they're in the UK. So right now, I have a few, in terms of the work that I do, I have people that reach out to me from all over the world, because they have people incarcerated in places like Bronzefield. They don't know what to do, and it's comforting for them to have someone like me, because I'm like, I give them the reality as a family member of the trauma, first and foremost, of what's happening right now, day to day. Every single day, there's another added trauma, and allowing them to be aware of that, because when that individual goes home, yes, they're home and everyone's happy, but that person is carrying a lot of trauma, and a lot of that trauma doesn't even belong to them.
Yeah.
Which is
it's what you've seen, isn't it? It's what you've
you can
seen.
go to prison for one day, one day, 1 week, 1 month. The trauma that is attached to that experience is what does the stuff,
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, it's life changing. On the last podcast, Sherelle spoke about how, before going to prison, she had like a preconceived idea of people that took substances and Class A drugs, and now she's in a situation where a lot of the women are actually taking these drugs, but these women are taking these drugs sometimes to survive, because, like you say, there's a lot of drugs in prison, but you're also locked behind, like you say, a door with your trauma, you and your trauma alone.
Yeah. And on that note, I made friends with so many women that had addictions, so many, like the respect levels that I have for the women that I met in there. Big up Michelle, man, Michelle Jewel, anywhere you are, big up you, because she taught me something about myself that I had no understanding of. based on where I grew up and what I understood, and like you said, our little crackheads. And but this woman, yeah, like I sat and went through like her going down on her methadone, and because we used to do the surgery together in the mornings and in the after, so I got to see those people for people behind the addiction,
Yeah.
and it leads to a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
a lot of trauma, which then explains why they've committed the crimes that they've committed. And sometimes that goes from low-end crimes even to high-end crimes, as bad as it sounds like. Some of these high-end crimes, especially when it comes to the, that the murder charges, I made very good friends with people that are in there for that charge.
Yeah.
But when you speak to them and you hear their stories and the trauma, and, the survival,
Yeah.
that was overlooked,
Or never even spoke about, Lee. A lot of these women never ever reported the abuse they were suffering.
No, you got Gangster Gran, this old lady that I met in there. She burnt her husband up with salt, sugar, but boiled up the sugar and burnt him up.
Yeah.
And she was being abused for years, her and her child. And one day she just had enough. She just had enough. And that was it. And even when she did it, it's like she felt like it wasn't enough. So she told the job, "Is that it?" And he was like, "Okay." Well, and he gave her, I think it was like 7 more years on top of her sentence. And but speaking to her, it was just like, wow. Meeting women in the prison that used to shout, "No men in women's prisons." Shout that, like this one woman in particular, she just shout top of her voice, So when you've seen all of these things and experience some of these things, it creates trauma whether you like it or not. And people say, "Don't say it's not trauma." No, it is. It's created a traumatic attachment to your life. Pregnancy. If you can look at pregnancy and know that pregnancy and labor, that is a trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. People see it as a joy, they remember it, but it's a trauma. Something that you remember that has an effect on your life today is a trauma.
Yeah.
And managing those traumas is one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do. I think I'm still finding it hard to do now.
I was just about to say, like, when you say like isn't it something that's still ongoing?
Yeah, absolutely, every day. Because it was worse when I first came home. The first year or two, it was like I used to just get visions. They used to just come to me of things that I'd seen, and that was just like, it was always like, did I see that? Was that real? Do you know what I mean? I went through that for a long time, or I would hear something or hear a song. Sometimes it was because I used to play music all the time, and I used to play music in there to cover up a lot of the things I could hear around me, i.e. my neighbor. Every day it was like, we are. The alarm's going off, and it's them at her door. She lived right next door to me, and you could hear it on the tunnel, like, it's freezing off 24. And I'm like, oh my God, you can hear that she's ligature, this carrier bag, this, and you can hear it all. That created trauma. And I never forget that I remember one night sitting in that cell, and I just thought, if this is what life is, I just don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Like, I literally do not want to be here. And when I tell that story about that, and then I remember going back to another prison, and seeing that same person and being in a better place and having to apologize to her because because for your trauma to impact me like that,
Yeah.
that's a lot of trauma you got.
Yeah.
And then it worked out that she'd got 18 months and she'd been in there 11 years. She'd been abused throughout the system by women because in the women's system, it's just crazy what they allow for these detrimental traumatic events to happen.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing, and unless you've experienced it, it's so hard to explain to somebody.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, isn't it?
Whoa, like this is real life.
That's the thing. And I can definitely testify to that. I mean, there's still some things that I saw in my time in prison that I probably only speak of to other people that have been to prison, because I feel like it would actually be too traumatic to tell someone the things that go on in prison if they've never been there. So you mentioned things like a ligature. I didn't know what a ligature was until I went to prison. And like you said, you've got neighbors, people around you. Sometimes people are in dorms, trying to end their lives by any means necessary. I thought in order to hang yourself, you had to like be up high. You can actually put something and just go and lie down. It was very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Or steal the razor, because that's something else that used to happen quite a lot. The women used to steal the razors, and then some officers will just and leave it. They would believe they could trust the prison. The next thing they've used that razor. You had people getting items that you'd never. It's like, where'd you get that from? Like jars, like
Yeah, the coffee jars. I know that was a
yeah, and it
a
was
big
just
thing.
like, I see people take, cut their throats. I'll just say it as it is. I've seen
Yeah.
people cut their throat and then get admitted and come back and then cut the bust throat, as I say.
Yeah.
And it's just like, because they got no one, I've seen it, rest in peace to all of the women that I was, 7 women I see lose take their life in that place in the 3 years that I was in there, and it was so sad. Like, I remember even Karen, man, rest in peace to Karen, because she was screaming for help, and these women were in there she was in there for a long time. I think she'd done about 12 years out of her 24. But how the officers behave and how they treat you, like, they didn't understand. They didn't know nothing about trauma informed in prison until I got there. Not to say that I taught them, but until I got there in 2018, there was no trauma informed in Bronsfield. I know that much because I know that I was part of the LEAP peer advisor group, and we trained the officers as prisoners. They had conflict and leadership and a little bit of trauma informed. It was crazy. They only learned how to do that in 2018.
Wow.
So, when I started to look at those things, I'm like, okay, yes, my story, but what about the other women? What about all the women before me?
Yeah.
And what about the women that's after me?
Yeah. And that's where that's what has inspired you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm not leaving. I've got women in there that I'm not leaving in there.
Yeah.
I'm fighting for them.
No
You know,
woman left.
they
No
may know
woman
it, but
left
I'm
behind.
fighting. No. It's too corrupt. It's too corrupt. And again, when it comes to us as Black people, I think it's very important that we make people understand the realities of what we're going through on a day to day. I don't want no one sugarcoating the racism. I don't want no one, and I don't want it. I want it understood and highlighted and shouted from the rooftops that this is what we are going through.
Tell us
Inside
about
the
that, Lee.
prison,
Tell us about it, Lee.
outside of the prison.
Because I know that uniquely, because of my time in prison, I stayed in one prison, and it was in London, which is, as you know, London's a very diverse place. But I happen to understand that during your time in prison, you went to quite a few prisons. Can you kind of share your experiences of racism, because it is very important, because Black women are not treated fairly.
No, not at all. So, so we'll try and keep this brief. So, Bronsfield, like you said, is it's London. Well, Holloway, Bronsfield, it's all London. Ashford, Kent, whatever. So it's London. You've got more diversity, right? A lot of the officers were quite young, and yeah, just more London. Yeah, and then the more up north you went. So I went to Downview. I'll say this before I carry on. I don't know where they find these officers as you go up. It's like they just drop out of a planet somewhere. They're just not normal.
Yeah.
They're just not normal. And I don't mean that in no disrespectful way, respectfully. But when I say they're not normal, it's almost like, what have you been living for the last 20 years? Because Downview was the first place that I experienced racism.
Wow, Downview. That actually
just
surprised
slightly.
me.
That was it was just slightly. It wasn't overall. It was one particular officer, Miss Brown. I call out everybody good for who they are. Do you understand?
Good.
Because I would like for people to hear this and can relate to the people that I'm talking about, because it's the truth I'm telling. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But the receipts are definitely necessary. So please bring on the confirmation. I'm ready for it. For Miss Brown, she was very racist. In everything that she did, in all the decisions that she made and the way that she treated us, and then I went and then from there I was ghosted. They call it ghosting. So I was basically taken out of my room at 7 o'clock in the morning, taken to another cell for 2 hours while my room was being packed, for me to be shipped to another prison in Derby. As a Londoner with a child, which is 3.5 hours for those that don't know, is 3.5 hours from London, and the average time you can spend on a visit is 2 hours. You do the maths, pick the sense out of the nonsense. It just wasn't going to happen. So, when I went to Foston Hall, that was when I was that. Do you see how I'm just taking time?
I'll bust it up because
I'm going to take a minute with this one, because Foston, I have never really gone into Foston Hall, because I feel like it's a whole 2 hours of its own. But I will speak about it in brief. Foston Hall was the most racist prison I'd ever been to. Institutionally, away from it being a personal attack, I'd like someone to explain how 10 minutes of water, of being able to use water on a daily basis for 10 minutes, right? So you use it for 10 minutes and then it shuts off for 6 hours and then it turns back on for 10 minutes. Now, I'm speaking about facts here. This is not a dig at anybody, but the facts are that as Black people, we wash regular. Do you understand? It's just in our culture. We do. Do you understand? And if it's not ourselves we're washing, it's washing the whites or we're washing something. We are always in our water. You understand?
Yeah.
But having that experience of being told that you only have 10 minutes to wash your entire body, you know, your locks, you know, your flour, everything. Especially the fact that I was working in the kitchens as well. So I was doing kitchens, you know, kitchen fries. So I used to go to work, come back, come back and shower. And I remember this is the first time I'm doing this, right? And I've turned on the shower because I'm trying to turn it on, let the water get a little bit hot. And I kid you not, I swear that it's like as soon as I've gone in there to just the water done. So I was like, so the explanation that they had was like, you know, you have to be disabled, you have to have some kind of impairment to have water. And I'm just like, this is inhumane.
Like water, like a basic.
Yes. And they're like, well, you don't need more than 10 minutes. I'm like, no, you don't need
more than 10 minutes.
You know, and then I was like, well, where's the equality in diversity? Because this is serious. We're talking about water here. And I've been in prison for now a year, right? A year. Never had an issue with water, even though it was cloudy, dirty, but there's water.
Yeah.
I was told in that prison that I had too much black skin showing at times.
Excuse me?
I was literally 1 out of 5 Black women in that prison, that whole prison. And myself and my friend that got shipped out with me included that 5. So I was told that many times, that, you know, you've got too much black skin. And I said that, excuse me. It was just crazy the way they used to deal with me in there. Like, I had officers come outside and tell me that, you know, I had to take off my shoes because they're not appropriate, or I had to take off my top, like, you know, the spaghetti vest tops.
Yeah.
So in some prisons they say that it's nightwear. In another prisons they say that you can wear it as a top, right?
Yeah.
It's a top, isn't it? It's on my prop one as a top, but it's like you can't wear that.
Yeah.
Skin. I'm like, but she's got on the same top in a different color. I'm confused. Yeah, it was crazy. I godsend Jane. She was a godsend. She was the kitchen worker, and she let me cook for the prison. She was, because I cried. Like, imagine you get shipped out to the middle of nowhere, and I was just like,
Disgusting.
this is madness. Like, it was just mad. The people in there were mad. It was a therapeutic prison, so it was punishment. This was an attack. Like, whatever you thought you was gonna do, you did it. You know, mentally, you went to fuck. Yeah, mentally, you did it. You did that. I'm not gonna say that they didn't. They did. They fucked me. By putting me there.
Yeah.
But being myself, that go library, realize that, okay, this is a breach now, so I need to go back.
Yeah.
And that was a fight also, you know, because of the melanin.
Something tells me you're up for the fight though, Lee.
Oh, always up for the fight from the very beginning, because for me it wasn't just about me. It's like, this is an injustice. Remember, I've never been in this situation. So okay, I need to do my sentence, but no one told me I needed to be silenced in that.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So I was making a lot of noise, and it wasn't aggressive, but it was a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Where they had to listen. The governors, they had to start listening, to the point where I went to, so okay, so that's Foston. We'll leave Foston because we'll do that a whole nother day.
Yeah.
But then from Foston, I went back to Bronzefield, which was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Send, which, and again, where did you people come from?
Is that still an open? Is that an open? Is that
No, that's a semi-open. So you have an open wing, which is what I went there to do. I went to go on E&F, which is a resettlement wing. I've gone to Send, and it's a mixture now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, where do you people come from, dude?
What
village are you from? Where do
you motherfuckers?
Chile, right? So I will never forget Nigel. Nigel, he was cool, man. But it was something about, he used to just look at me weird. Yeah. And my brethren Tash used to just vouch for me. She'd be like, no, he's cool, man. She's good. Like, she's good for it. Anyway, one day this man called me coloured. And I was just like, we're not coloured, Nigel.
Like loud and proud with chest.
Yeah, with chest like it was normal. He said, yeah, lad, dark hair and the coloured girl. Wow. You know what I mean? So we had he learned after that, and I'm not gonna lie, big up Nigel, because through COVID he came and got me every day, every single day. And said, do you want to work today or not? You don't even have to come out. If you want to come out, you can. These times everybody's locked in. So when I say I feel very blessed, because sometimes you have to learn how to just. They say you can't speak to ignorant people, but you can educate people that are ignorant.
Yeah.
Not everybody that doesn't know is ignorant. That's what I learned.
Yeah.
He said, with him.
Yeah.
And then it got worse. COVID hit, and then you really started to see it. You know, like not being put on lists for activities. I have a friend that we speak about this openly on YouTube about how she was favoured turns over the majority of the landing, let alone the black people. You know, so she knows she's seen things like me get IEP'd for kissing my teeth.
Yeah.
Because I was walking up the stairs and I tripped.
Just explain to the podcast what an IEP is. We're too comfortable with this conversation.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so an IEP. So imagine I go with what it stands for, but it's like a negative. It's a negative comment.
Something and privileges is to do with that. So
it's to do with privileges. So if you get 3 IEPs,
you're on the naughty step.
Yeah. So you get 3 IEPs, you go on basic, they take your TV, and that's you. No association and all of that nonsense. Yeah. So no one doesn't really want to get an IEP. And also IEPs affect your parole if you've got that type of sentence. And it can also affect your chances of getting open conditions as well, which means that you can go home and, get released on temporary license. Yeah. So it's quite a big thing to not want to get, a lot of people want green IEPs. Yeah. Some people will beg for them, like, please, can I just get IEP for cleaning, or can I get IEP for this, or because it goes on their record, right? So it's COVID. Okay, this is a prime example of the racism that I believe, because I ain't silly. I know what I experienced, innit? Big up Nisi, yeah? So this girl, me and her were the only 2 people that really, we clicked, right? But she lived, so you've got E and F, right? So she lived on E wing, I lived on F wing. But this is an open wing, yeah? Let me just add this. It's an open wing, which means that you don't get locked in.
Yeah.
The women that are trying to are ready to get released within 2 years are doing their roles, on one wing. But on the E wing where she lives, you've got a lot of lifers, a lot of people that are in there for. So I never understood why women were allowed to. The lifers were allowed to do what the people getting released are going to do. Anyway, long story short, COVID is hit. We're not allowed to really socialize, yeah? So E wing has to come out and then F wing come out. So when she's out, she comes to my window, we chat for the hour. And then when it's her time, I'm out there with the chair. You know what I mean? This is how we support each other, because mental health is real. We're in there as mothers, we're suffering because there's a lockdown now. Now everything's just changed. Anyway, so I'm sitting outside her door, but my foot is, something happened with my foot, right? So I brought the chair outside. So I'm sitting on the chair, talking to her from the window. This officer has come outside and she's like, I think she rang the bell or whatever it was, but because I'm a non-conformist, I heard you, innit? But I'm not going like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I will be probably the last one to go inside, but I will go inside.
Yeah, I'll do it, but on my time.
Yeah, but I'm not going to be defined. Like, I'm going to go inside, just no.
Right.
Ring the bell. And I was very much like that. Then they'll be like, it's association. I'm like, I'm not going. It's lunchtime. I'm going. And they'll be like, you're coming here. I'm like, we're going when I'm ready. You know, too. Ding. But anyway, that's going off topic. So sitting out there, my foot. So she's like, oh, you need to go. I said, I'm coming. So I've got up and I've picked up the chair. She said it again. She said, you need to go. I said, I am coming. I said, my foot is hurting me, you know. And I started walking with the chair. And the bad mind, I'm cussing out in my head, you know. And the bad mind made me trip.
Oh my God.
So hear me. And she came upstairs about 10 minutes later with her slip.
Oh my goodness me.
And she's giving me an IEP for kissing my teeth.
You got an IEP for kiss?
Yeah, I took the IEP and I took it back to the office and I put it back at IEP. And then they came back and gave me another IEP on top of that IEP for that, what do they like to call it? something about an object to the direct order or some nonsense, man. I'm like, whatever, you know, and that's just a part of it, right? That's just a part of it. Because the officer that gave me that IEP, remember George Floyd had passed during this time, right?
Yeah.
So I was watching his funeral on TV, and I don't know, I was just my energy was just it was very, very heightened. I was pumped up, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
And this same officer came to my door and she was like, "What is all this noise?" Yes, I was like, I'm watching George Floyd funeral. You know, like right now, today's not.
It's not the right plan.
Long story short, I had her outside my door for 2 hours because she made a statement which made her, which she confessed that she was racist in it. Yeah. And it was a lot based on the fact that she'd never interacted with a black person before. She'd never had a conversation with anyone long, even in the smidgen. That 2 hours I gave her, that was the longest she'd ever had. I don't think she's probably even had one since, if I'm honest. Because I don't think anyone would give her the time of day.
You never know. You might have impacted her in a way that you don't know.
But it was just in her. It was just embedded in her. And it was just like, and it just showed in the way that she treated like all of us, you know. But after that, she changed a little bit, you know. But it showed because when certain officers were on, she was okay. And when they wasn't, you know, and I'll just sum it up by saying, you know, they would take my mail, and I used to make sure I didn't give my mail, my post to the night staff. I'd give it to the night staff. I'd wait until the night staff come. Because I realized the night staff aren't the officers on the day. Because tell me this frightfulness, the stealing out of your room, you know, they stole my CDs and my books. So I'll just go back a little bit then. Sorry, because we're going up and down. So I used to listen to my music. Music was something that one of the first things I asked for when I got my sentence. Yeah, like, can you send me my music and my books? I used to do proper Sundays in jail, like cleaning my take out everything and clean and write down and play my music, my Dennis Brown, my Chronics, whatever. You understand? And I used to do that regularly. Officers used to come and turn the electric off. So then when I got the ship out, when I got the ghost into Foston Hall, it's like the pile. When I looked at the pile, I asked him, like, so where's the rest of my stuff? And it was like, that's it. And the officer that did the ship out, him and Miss Brown, they took my CDs and my books and they put them in the library, the prison. Yeah.
Miss Brown,
the Sunday.
You are horrible, man.
Know that it was an attack because you took the Sunday CDs. You could have took any CDs. You specifically took my Chronics, my Dennis Brown, my who else did I have? I had a few old school, you know, I had a Studio One CD that my mom had sent, you know, I had the things to keep me up. And they knew that. They could see that. Do you understand? And I'm telling you, that is how deep it gets. Even down to some women, I see them put on substances. Yeah, they put them on mental health substances when they've never taken substances in their sorry, not substances, medication. Yeah. In comparison to how they deal with the white girls, it's just what you see in it, and when you start to see it every day, you can't get away from it. Do you know what I mean?
So that's a good point. So tell me about some of the lows and how did you cope with those feelings of isolation and hopelessness? Because you've got all of this racism going on. You're being moved from prison to prison, further away from your daughter, which, by the way, they're not supposed to do. They're supposed to try to foster and maintain relationships. Yep. So that's another way how they fail with their own strategy. But just tell me about some of those and how you cope with those feelings.
Some of them, oh God. Definitely the separation. So I didn't cry until like 3 months in. I was getting visits and then my mum was like, you know, how are you? And I'm like, I'm fine, you know, I'm fine, you know. I was actually okay. I felt guilty.
Yeah.
That I was okay because I wasn't with her. It was strange feelings I was going through, man. So yeah, that separation thing, like I'd have her pictures up on the wall, you know, for a couple of weeks or whatever, and then one day I'll just take them down.
Yeah.
I'll just get mad with myself and I'll just take them down. Like I don't want to see them. Like in jail, like you're in jail. Sometimes I felt like I was too comfortable. I was trying to like be at home, but do you know what I mean? And sometimes it helped, sometimes it didn't. Loss. I think the loss was like one of the biggest ones for me. Losing 10 members of my family in that time. Yeah, that was hard. It's still hard now. having to process the loss. That was kind of hard. Oh, the surroundings, we've touched on it already, like just the suicides and stuff, and just the people that was in there, because it was very hard to make friends.
Yeah.
Like, you had to make friends based on energy. It was just energy. It was energy or nothing. Like,
Yeah. You don't really have a lot to go on. Brilliant. No credentials, like nothing. They stole my drawers. They're all down to my drawers got stolen in jail.
I'm done. Do you know what's like this? I'm just off key. I used to plant things in my room purposely. Like, I used to set traps in it just to see how my wig was moving, because I'm a very genuine person. There's nothing you can ask me for that I'm not giving you. Do you know what I mean? I'm giving it to you with some wisdom and some advice on top. How about that? Like the vaping situation. People are like, oh, the double bubble. I'm like, no, I'm not going to give you one and you're going to give me two. I'm going to give you one and you're going to make it last.
Yeah. And so you don't have to keep asking me.
Because you have no money. The reality, and it's like trying to get people into a mind frame of, I understand there's a lot of trauma and I know you're trying to block shit out, but the reality is you can't manage this.
Yeah.
They put a lot more pressure on themselves because they end up owing people for this and that. And
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
trying to get people to focus in there is the hardest thing ever. Like, it's the hardest thing ever, especially if they've never been focused before. I'm grateful that I had never been away, and I'm grateful that I had the life I did before I was away.
Yeah.
Because it allowed me to, the things that we're talking about, it allowed me to kind of manage them a bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
What was the question?
I was just asking you how you kind of dealt with some of the lows, the feelings of isolation and hopelessness. But I think you kind of touched on that when you was kind of speaking anyway. But
And music as well.
yeah,
Definitely
the music. And obviously, I know Sherelle mentioned it. I will testify to this, that it's the friendships and stuff that you make in there. It's almost more intense, isn't it? And I ended up trying to stop make friends because I was in Holloway, and that was a prison where they used to kind of send people. You don't really stay there unless you're a lifer or a YO. It was kind of just like a holding prison. You get sentenced and then you go somewhere else. So you'd make these attachments with people, and like you say, some of them will be ghosted the next day. So there was periods during my sentence where I literally spent trying not to get close to people. But I would big up people like Queenie, who kind of beset my status before I got there and made that easier for me. But I'm just gonna like move it along a little bit and just ask you, because I know what you do now, but what are your thoughts on the prison system's effectiveness in preparing individuals for re-entry into society? You've done 3 years, you've been to all of these prisons, you've gone to prison to be rehabilitated, you've not committed a violent crime. So really and truly, by its own thing, you shouldn't be there. But, what are your thoughts on what they do to help women re-enter in society?
First of all, it's about facts, yeah? So it's about HMPPS, Criminal Justice System, National Probation Services, all of them, accept the fact that there is no rehabilitation, accept the fact that it's non-existent. Stop pretending to the people that you have this system that's built, to support people before, during, and after they have experienced something so horrific and traumatic, yeah? That's the first thing. Like, it is non-existent. Also, facts, organizations are being funded by the HMPPS or by on paper with strategies and all of these things attached, they're supposed to be supporting women. Let's talk about women. So you've got organizations like Women in Prison who are there to support women in prison.
Yeah.
And that have come out.
Please don't get me started on Women in Prison, because it might be a 2-hour-long podcast in which I will say,
as an example. So so when you have an organization like that, and it's not a dig at the organization, but what I'm going to let people understand is that as someone that went through the system and did the work, and I'm telling you, I've got women that like you said, you get shipped out. I had women that were writing me, they asked for my prison number and they got my mobile number now. Do you get what I'm saying? They never left. Yeah. It was genuine friendship because it was genuine support. So the value of my lived experience, I mean, everyone has value, but I know the value of my lived experience within an advocate setting is it's second to none. So when you get an opportunity to be part of something so big like women in prison, I've hit gold, they've hit gold. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can now make changes because you've now filled the gap of an organization and lived experience. Lived experience has been flying all over the place for 2024. It's cemented now. Do you get what I mean? The value is there. I've been doing workshops in probation offices for the last 2 years. It's working. So when you have someone that has these and they have the skills and they have qualifications up their arse, do you understand?
Yeah.
And because of, I'd say, money's got a lot to do with it. Greed, control, because it would look bad if for an ex-offender to come and make an organization look bad.
See, I don't understand why, and I think you're adding value to their organization, and then you're very kind. I'm gonna call these people out. Women in prison, get your shit together, because I will say that, I've been out of prison now for a very long time, and one of the things that I wanted to do, I was a bit like yourself, Lee. I wanted to try to give something back, see what I've learned, and I got involved with women in prison in 2 different instances, many years apart. At first, I volunteered in their admin office over in North London, where it was. I was going there from where I live in South London, which wasn't easy. They were paying for my expenses or whatever. And they would have me sitting there doing some foolishness of no value on the computer. And I'm thinking, okay, I've been to jail. Like, do you guys not want to ask me anything or use the value of my experience? And then the second time around, they sent me and about 20 other people to college to train to be mentors. And we took our time and, we did it. They paid for DBSs. And then they never used us. We never heard from women in prison again. They were reshuffling, and they let all of that experience just walk down the road. Now,
I feel like they unintentionally did that, though. I feel like it was unintentional because, again, I was saying that because I didn't, but I didn't say it on here. So basically, I got the job as an advocate, as an actual advocate for Lambo, with women in prison as a full-time role. And because of vetting, apparently they said that my behavior was not the organization. This is HMPPS, and this is what I mean. The organizations aren't doing themselves any favors because you're making it worse. So that means you're just taking the money and doing what with it? Because you let me go. What they did is they let me go. And their reason was that they didn't have the funding to keep me. So I don't understand how we can rehabilitate. How are we going to do that now? So also, and I will say it because it's not secrets, but there were small little projects that were being formed. One that was being supported by police, which was alternative provisions for women, right? So if you get arrested as a woman, you could literally get a conditional caution and do work in the community with women in prison, right? With the advocates. It's not even with advocates, with me. Do you understand? Now, imagine yourself as a woman. This is all going back to trauma, Imagine living your life and getting in and going through like in and out of police stations and what have you. Now you've got a charge. You've got to go to court. Who's there to support you? I didn't have anybody there to support me. I didn't know what I was going to court to do. I made my case worse because I didn't have any knowledge. I made decisions that I didn't have if I wish I had a lead when I was at court. I wish I had a lead throughout the whole of this. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. The organizations, it's all money. It's all money. So they let me go. And I did actually like reach out to the CEO, and it wasn't like, I'm just like, look, the trauma that you have created in me now, you need to understand it. This is not, I didn't lose my job. I didn't do anything wrong. You actually employed someone that you should have never employed. You actually had someone working with, I had a caseload. Even though it was small, I still had a caseload. I had access to certain databases and stuff. So if I wasn't at risk at that point and I was doing the work, and these are the same people that took me and put me on the news, told the whole world that, they employed me. Do you know what the trauma that's created when people are asking me, how's your job?
Absolutely disgusting.
On the news, Lee. Because people are still saying it now. Oh my God, I'm so proud of you. I just saw you on the news. I did a post on my TikTok, it was like, I went from, prisoner to advocate to CIC.
Yes, you did some work with Kelechi as well.
Yeah, that was the we did. Oh God, we don't even want to go into that. But again, it's all back to racism. It just all goes back to racism and how Black people are treated within these organizations as professionals, as ex-offenders, whatever. Do you understand? Like, I had an amazing team. And I do believe that because of race, the team wasn't able to thrive as much as it wanted to, especially with me as part of it, because then it just makes everything else look bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, so the project that we did with Kalechi, I'll be real. After that happened, and meetings, like, you know, the team meetings, it was not mentioned. Like, it was something that we did. You know, I was asked to be part of that as a creator who never worked for. I never worked for him at the time. I was just an ex-offender that got brought in by a member of the team. Do you understand? But again, because of race, things were shut down and things were taken over. So when you say that, where is it? Where is the stuff? Where, you know, what can we do with it? They made it sound like, oh, it was all about the 40-year anniversary. Like, no, it wasn't. This was about Speak Your Truth. This was something that I created with 4 other people. Do you understand? So the trauma, this is not just me talking a story. This is trauma that's been created because these I didn't do it because I was bored. You know, the people that were involved in this were very much like, it's part of this conversation that we're having now. You know, they will watch this and they will have an input because it's a world that we live in. When you're not in that world, yeah, it's very different. So
You get trauma informed, Lee, you get gender informed. I think you need more racially informed. The things they go together. You can't leave one out.
yeah,
And
definitely.
we've already said that there are not a lot of specialist organisations working with Black women. So whilst, you know, I give organisations such as Women in Prison because they are probably the best of the bunch. They're one of the best of the bunch. But in itself, that's not saying a lot. I don't think me knowing being around this organisation for the last 18 years and it originally being started by ex-offenders, I think they've gone away from that ethos. And I think they need to go back because, you know, they do help a lot of women, but they could help so many more and they could do so much more. You know, it costs over £50,000 to keep a person in prison for a year. You know,
No, 100%, man.
yeah, you could give half of that money to someone that is willing to work, that's passionate like you, and make much more of a difference because you're supposed to be getting these women in the community.
And pick up your CEO. You know, I will pick her up, the CEO of Women in Prison, the current one, because when I did reach out to her with that email, she reached back, and her response was accountable. There was a lot of accountability and responsibility based on what she doesn't know. Because I did put in there, you know, this is the statement. This is your mission statement. Please remember this was set up by an ex-offender. Yeah. So the basis of this is lived experience.
Yeah.
And the further you go away from that is the worse it's going to be. And what's going to be sad for all of these organizations is that when I do start my stuff, I don't want to see you. You know, I don't want to see you. I don't want to. You will be referring your clients to me.
Yeah, and that is what I think will happen because and that's what they deserve. To be honest with you, they need to stop letting good lived experience, passionate lived experience walk out of their door.
It creates more trauma for the people that have left. So imagine my clients were like, you're just amazingly. One of my clients was like, I just don't want to let you down. Like, to the point where because she called me at 6 o'clock in the morning one day. And I'm like, who are you calling? I said, you called me at 6 in the morning. Are you mad? She was like, and I just gave her me.
Yeah.
And when I say she appreciated that, I was just so direct. I was like, listen,
Yeah.
She was very appreciative of that. So having a conversation about me leaving was not easy because of where we had got to. Do you understand? Like, and I said it in my email, you know, if you was to look at
that could be quite detrimental to her, actually.
I said, if you was to look at my case notes, I said to them, you should have looked at my case notes and had a discussion about this before you let me go with immediate effect. Because my clients needed me, but because I am a professional, you know, I didn't reach out. But had I met them people in a different space, I would still have them on my team now. Yeah. That makes sense because we're a community of people that understand each other. So like I said, everything I asked her to do, she did. She started to take account for herself because she's getting someone that actually understands without having to say, I've been to prison, I've da-da-da-da-da. You can hear it in the language when someone's speaking to you that they understand where you're coming from. Yeah. And you just respect that. But they don't want the results. They don't. They want the numbers.
Yeah, because I think the results, if you think about it, puts them out of business. So, you know, if no women ever went to prison, which is what we really want. We don't want women entering organisations like Women in Prison are no longer getting funding. These people are no longer on these salaries, and it's self-serving.
And they want them on case notes for like years.
So we will help, but not to, I'm pretty sure that there are people within that organisation that, know exactly what needs to be done. But whether or not it will get to the point where they ever do it, I don't have that much faith. And that's why I encourage people like yourself to go out there and do things on your own. You don't need this organisation to allow you to do your work and what you're supposed to do.
No, I am a business in itself.
Yes. They don't have the lived experience. You can read a lot of books and you can meet a lot of people and empathize a lot, but there's no substitute for experience. Okay.
Right. And getting that through to probation was what was hard also, because, people and their mindsets, when you've got people that are making these types of decisions on people's lives and they're all over a certain age and come from a certain demographic, it's not healthy, It's not healthy, Not for things change. And even with our own parents and stuff, right? That's we say that they're just so old school or whatever. And like there's things that they don't understand. There's things that are going on in my daughter's life that I don't understand, but I'm not. For me to make good decisions, I have to keep up with the times, no?
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
To make sure
it's necessary, isn't it? It's difficult sometimes to keep up with the times because things change so much. But
a little shuffle. No, you've got the same members of the parole board for the last 15, 20 years, mate. You know what I mean? You've got the same, governors are different.
Yeah.
But I think we're going a bit off track.
No, that's okay. But, I really feel like, women in society, we're overlooked all the time. And I feel like women in prison are almost invisible. The purpose of this is to kind of highlight some of the stupid reasons that women go to prison, some of the really serious reasons women go to prison, the trauma. But just to hammer this home, because a lot of women in prison are mothers, all right? And this is what really, this had the deepest effect on me. I think, as in prison, I was a listener. I worked for the Samaritans. I used to go around and speak to women. And a lot of the source of distress was the separation from their children, right? So how did prison affect your relationship with your daughter in the first instance and then your wider family? Because I know that your daughter was very young when you went to prison.
Yes, she was just about to turn 2. However, because I was carrying ongoing trauma from her being born prematurely, and then within a year, my house had burnt down, and then within like a couple of months, I'd been arrested, and then within a year again, I was in prison. So I didn't have time to kind of process much. I am grateful that my trial was 10 weeks, and the reason I say that is because it was like going to work every day. My daughter got used to me not being with her throughout the day. It wasn't like I was with her every day and then boom, I just disappeared. Like she actually got into a routine of being dropped off in the morning, being picked up in the evening. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like that helped, but yeah, it was up and down. Like I said at the beginning, I didn't cry. I didn't have any emotions. It was just a lot going on. And then when I realized I wasn't going home, I kind of just dived into writing her letters and trying to be present. When I saw her for the first time on a visit, I was like, hi. I was like, who am I? She's like, Mummy. I'm like, oh. I was like, my mum was like, I said, I don't know. She might forget me. She's like, she's never going to forget me. So I was scared that she was just going to forget who I was and what have you. But yeah. The question was,
what about now? How, because obviously you've been out about 4 years now.
Yes, had it February's fine.
We gotta celebrate that, by the way.
Your first year of real freedom, like
no license, no probation, freedom. But now, do you see any lasting effects from that time, or is there anything that you're still finding challenging?
Many things. Where do we start with when it comes to being a mum? Let's just go back a bit. So I got to a point in my sentence where I had to believe my daughter was a fly on the wall, because I had to remember that I was a mum. For me, I had my daughter at 30, had her quite late. Yeah. So as to most, right? So I've enjoyed all of my life without no responsibilities. And then I have a child, and then within a year I go to prison. Yeah. So I automatically went back into a single mode, And then I ended up having a fight in there, and my mum, she got mad. She was like, "What are the social services looking at, and see that you're violent and you're in there fighting," and it was like, oh my God. And also having to deal with the mental health in there as well. It was like, do you know what? If I just pretend she's in the corner up there, I will just not behave a certain way,
Yeah.
and certain things will just not bother me. And that's what I had to do. Phone calls again, too much phone calls started to affect her, especially during COVID. Didn't see her for a year. You have to really weigh up the pros and cons.
We didn't see her for a whole year. That's terrible.
Yeah. COVID, isn't it?
It never really occurred to me what would happen in prisons during COVID, because obviously we felt like we were in prison in our own house, and I found COVID quite easy because of my time in prison. I was like, whatever. I didn't actually think about the impact on prisoners. That's mad.
Yeah, no, they wanted us to have visits with the glass.
Oh no.
And it was like, how does my daughter come on a visit and say like, come and give me a hug? And I'm like, no, you can't hug me. Crazy. So I was like, forget that. I'd rather have no visits. But and then I swapped that for phone calls. Every day I was on the phone, and she was like, "Mommy, you're taking so long." And every day she started to get a little bit more upset, like, "Mommy, you're just taking long now. Every day you're saying you're coming home soon." But for a child,
Yeah,
soon.
soon. Yeah.
I knew it was a couple of months. I knew it was like 9 months. But
Yeah. Soon for us. That's not soon for a child. That's like forever. Like forever.
Yeah, but it was hard. It dented me, man. That was it, innit? The question, it was like, how did
So,
and how is it affecting now? So now I feel like the good thing is that I speak to her a lot. I involve her in this because I just thought I was never going to lie to her. And I'm quite a social person. People know me. I was out in my area, and I saw a friend of mine that I hadn't seen for years, obviously. And he was just like, "Oh my God, you're out of prison." And I just looked at her and I just thought, people have no understanding of what they're doing,
Yeah.
So I had to really think out, how she knew. Obviously, she knew I wasn't around, innit? So when I came home, she forgot I was there.
Yeah.
For the best part of the first month or so, like I'd drop her to my cousins for the weekend. I pick her up and she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Mommy, I forgot you was here." It's like,
oh my God, I love the honesty of children, isn't it? They're funny, man. Don't boss me up.
And looking at pictures of her now was hard. Like when talking about the 3 years of being out, so that the last 3 years have been hard with her. Adjusting to the fact that I actually did miss those 3 years. Like it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happened. She talked, she talked and did all of that without me. She actually did that. I had to accept that happened.
Yeah.
So I feel like sometimes when you do that, it creates more trauma.
Yeah.
When
you kind of lock that away while you're doing your sentence, because like Sherelle said, it's like a world within a world, but actually coming out would be the first time you'd actually have time to realize how being in prison has actually traumatized you even more. So when we're talking about rehabilitation, who are we punishing here? Because we've had a little girl that's been without her mother for 3 years, when the government strategy says that you should be doing your sentence in the community.
But you're also putting that child at risk. I'll be very honest and tell you that when I came out of prison, they moved me an hour and a half away from my area. I remember I came out in 2020. I came out February 2021. So you just do the maths in it.
Yeah.
Of the lockdown and stuff, yeah. So I've gone to Leighton and they've just left me there.
Wow, that's
This child that's just like, "Mummy, mummy, 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 mummy." Now, I'll tell you this, I love my daughter. But after coming out of a situation like that and then switching to mum, that was crazy. Do you know what I mean? And her being with me every day, subconsciously not knowing if I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. But what I did is I had to talk to my daughter about these things.
Separation anxiety.
She started to wet the bed. So I was there, I just kind of associated that with anxiety and, fear and just little things. And it was exactly that. It was because she was scared, that's petrified, that I might not come back. And even up to like last year, she would even go to my mum's like, if I am not around for a little while and I don't call her, she gets worried.
Yeah.
And that's something I just have to manage. I just have to manage the emotions, you know, and be very honest and open with her about how I'm feeling. For first and foremost, like when I'm just not having a day. You know, I was talking the other day about rooms. I let her know that, you know, in there you're just in this one room for about 14 hours a day. And I said, so can you imagine doing that for, I think it was like 2,000 in the days, isn't it? I'm showing her the days as opposed to saying years. Children don't understand years.
Yeah.
My mommy was there for 2,000 the days, right? At 14 hours every day.
Yeah.
So sometimes I find myself just going into one room. She went, yeah, like she'll go, yeah, I've noticed that. Mommy. I said, yeah, but it's not because I don't want to be around you. So what you need to do is you need to help me get out of that space. So because this is something that's going to keep happening. And my daughter's just the smartest ever. She's helped with that. She will,
Kids are they're so emotionally intelligent, aren't they?
like, you know what, Mommy? I'm like, because I know why she's doing it. I just come out the room. Yeah. And I'm like, come, let's play a game, or let's do this, or because,
so sweet.
you know, you can just get sucked into that. You can get sucked into what people call institutional mindset. It's real life. You know, the doors, I said it the other day, man, like the doors are, even now, it's a problem. I'm trying to manage because I know no one's going to kick off the door. I know this, but the trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Like you're sleeping and it's not one time, not two times, not three, it's multiple times, you know.
It's awful, and the average person that has not had that experience would find that hard to understand, and I think that's why.
Don't take the slide for.
But you kind of lock it away, don't you? You kind of lock it away. So even you just speaking has kind of brought some things back to me that are locked away because I have no use for them out here because I can't explain to anybody really what it is. And you could tell them, but it'd be very hard. It's one of those situations that unless you're in, it's very hard to explain the kind of carnage that you see. Yeah, the smells.
Because I'm out in the community, so it triggers me so much that it can actually make me angry. It can literally bring me back to prison. There's things that can actually bring me back to that place, you know. And I have to understand that and manage that. And that's why when I look at places like social media and TikTok, for a prior example, there's individuals that I see on there that I know from prison. You know, and I saw what they went through in real life. So to see them display this type of behavior, I'm like, yeah, it's a prime example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the not dealt with. There's a lot of trauma there that's not been dealt with because you saw stuff. I was there with you. You know? And I see them slide in my life sometimes and watch and, you know, because some of them I speak to, some of them I don't. You know what I mean? But we all came from the same place, babes. We all saw the same things, but how you're choosing to deal with that trauma, yeah, I'm not hiding it. I have to talk about it because I don't think I would get to this point if I didn't speak about it. My family weren't happy about it. You know, nobody's really been happy about it until they see what it's done. You know, the people that it's helped, the impact it's had on my life, just me as a person, you know, because I could be in a very dark, black hole right now.
Yes, you can. And you could also be back in prison because a lot of women that, you know, go in on short sentences, because I was there for about 16 months and the amount of people that I saw, it was like a revolving door. That's what I call it. It's like a revolving door. Women coming back 5, 6, 7, 8 times on some next nonsense, no rehabilitation, being put back out, no housing, you know, that's it.
Yeah, I did all of that myself. I had to do that all myself. The housing, the everything. Like when I do tell the stories differently from here, like there's a lot of challenges when you don't have that strength. You know what I mean? Or when you don't have as much trauma as the next person. Like so there is a need for support. You know, it should just be a natural thing. Like when I came out of prison, I should have been sat down and assessed by someone about my mental state, how I'm feeling, what I'd been through. So when I was doing the, you know, the workshops in probation, I used to say to them, we used to do role plays and I'd be like, oh, I'm hungry in the role play. Because I'm like, it's lunchtime, you know, you think I've just come to do an appointment. I'm in prison mode, babe.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen stuff. I need a minute. I just say to them, why don't you give people a week before they come and sit in front of you and do what?
Yeah.
What are we doing here? When I need to just adjust. I need to go to sleep and wake up 5 times before I can understand that I'm actually not going back to that place.
Yeah, even seeing cars for the first time. I remember being sent out for a weekend of, I actually thought it was day release. So I'd come with just me, myself, I'm boppering, and they said like, where's your stuff? And I'm like, what stuff? They're like, you're going for the weekend. So I remember going back to my cell and getting all of this stuff and, you know, making quick phone calls and telling my family, look, I'm coming out
That's
for the
bad.
weekend, come and get me. And being outside Holloway and standing there and just seeing all the cars going by and being like,
But that's bad. That's bad. That is so bad. Number one, you didn't even know you was going on a weekend visit. Yeah, so that's trauma in itself. Because you're saying it like it's light. You get
yeah, no. I had an awful time.
every day, and you get excited about that, and then that changes in a second.
Mm.
It's traumatic.
I had an awful time, Lee. I came out and, you know, everyone wants to see me. Obviously, the people that have not been able to come and visit me. So my mum's house is packed up. And I found myself, even my mum used to make a joke and say, you want me to lock you in a room somewhere? And I used to have to go upstairs and literally just take moments to myself because it was very overwhelming.
I didn't understand it. Like when I came out, obviously, not obviously, but I came home. My granddad died like 18 days before my release. So when I came out, it was his funeral was the first one. My godmother had passed like 2 days before that. No one told me. That created trauma. Just saying, family. You know?
Yeah.
Because they thought it was better for me not to know. Remember, I've said I've lost 10 people already now, innit? So now we're at the end of your sentence. Let's just wait till because she's coming home in 2 weeks. That made it, I needed to know. Because when it come to, I think it was like I was out for a week or two. So there was a funeral I attended. I don't remember being there, if I'm honest. I just know I was there because I saw the pictures.
Yeah.
My godmother's funeral, I got a phone call when I was in my mother's house. And I was like, come in. And my godmother was like, come on, because like, you know, you should be here. And I was like, I can't move.
Yeah.
And that happened often. The anxiety, like the thought of going to be around people. And then my friends were like, oh, yeah. I would make plans, yeah. And then last minute, I'd be like, I'm not going.
Yeah.
And they'll get mad. And I'm like, you just don't understand. I can't move.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I want to, but I can't. I just don't have that capacity. That takes months, and in some cases years to build back up.
A whole year and a half to actually. I'll be real. I went out for the first time properly, comfortable, happy, no thoughts, no nothing. Even though I had my plan, because I got ADHD, so we plan everything. We know what time we're gonna leave, but I had a great time without feeling like someone's standing too close to me. And that was 3 years after being released.
Wow. And so we can laugh about it, but it's some serious shit because, like we've said, Lee, there's no rehabilitation in prison. But I will just ask you this: what was the most significant thing you learned? Because there is no rehabilitation, but you know, a lot of people find that in their self through self-reflection or whatever. What was the most significant thing you learned while in prison?
The most significant thing I learned is to love self. Self-love, self-awareness, self-respect, like understand self in it. I learned that you cannot judge a book by its cover. You meet people where they are. I learned that, you know, when you meet someone, just meet them where they are. It's not what you heard or what you've seen. Just meet them right where they are.
Beautiful. I love that.
And you can't be silent. I learned that I was sentenced, not silenced. That's
yes, you found your voice. They tried to take away your CDs, they took away your books, and you gave them your voice, girl. You asserted your voice. I'm proud of you for that.
I'm proud of me for that, if I'm honest, because I feel like I have done justice to the system or the women of the system in that sense, because I see the work, I see what it's doing, you know, and I know the bits that I can't see, I know it's happening.
Imagine going to prison to see so much injustice. The irony is it's not lost on me, mate. It's not lost on me.
My mum was like, "We all have all these prison friends."
Yeah.
But there was positive and negatives to that as well, you know. But yeah, man, we're a community, man. Big up my community, because I've got many women that you guys will see going forward that I've spent time in them. You know, we will go through specifics. i.e., you know, women that have been abused by officers, specifically, they're gonna come in and they'll tell their stories. You know, just
it's a lot, isn't it? Like you couldn't get the prison experience or trauma into 1, 2, 3, 4 podcasts. It's something that you'd always keep finding different things and remembering different things. Like it could be endless because the trauma is endless. I think what we do as human beings when things are too difficult, sometimes we've tried to forget about it. And it's like you say, sometimes you get them visions it's almost like it gets buried, and then every now and again you get those visions. But you know,
that I've had women reach out to me on social media, while I'm doing live, saying, like, I want to tell my story. I'm like, come, tell your story.
Yeah.
I've had women say, like, you're the first person I've ever seen as a woman talk about it. Like, you need to talk about it.
You inspired me. You inspired me.
I've done interviews, and I've had people call me at like 3 a.m. My own family that actually went to prison 20 odd years ago. We've never spoke about it. Not just us. No one's ever spoke about what that did to you. So she got triggered. She was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. I said, do you know what? I'm hearing it because your story's still valid.
Who feels it knows it, man.
Whether it be 20 years ago, 5 months ago, like literally, it doesn't make no difference. That's what I've learned. It doesn't matter when you went away.
Yeah.
The experience is the experience.
It's a unique experience, isn't it?
And there's a sense of comfort when you've got other people that have that experience.
Yeah.
So that's what I've learned.
That's beautiful. Plans for the future, Lee? Because you're free. You're here. You know, the system robbed you of quite a few years of your life, but you're not someone that's bitter and holding on to that. You're using that, motivation and that passion to help others. But what are your plans for the future?
Do you know what? I had loads of plans, right? And then I started working, innit? I was like, yeah, go to work. And that kind of, it just inspired me to think, do you know what? I think that the universe blessed me and saved me. Because if you asked me this last month, I'll be like, yeah, but there's been advocate for women in prison and but I feel like I've been saved. And it's just given me the push to do what I was doing in the first place. So what's to come? Beyond Bars CIC, which is going to be focusing on quite various things, i.e. hair care products for Black women in the system. Hopefully we can set up something where they can get products, because if anyone that follows me, you'll see that I struggled with getting my locks washed in the 10-minute water. And yeah, I struggled with that. So yeah, Beyond Bars, we're gonna have podcasts is gonna be out. That's gonna be amazing. You're gonna be on there too.
Babes, I'm whenever you need me, just I'm there.
So yes, we've got CIC coming up. I've got a book that I'm working on as well.
Yeah, you're still doing some stuff with Fran. Is that her name?
Fran, yeah, that's the other stuff. That's some so they built a community for women differently. There's so much stuff, and this is what I mean, like each one teaches one. So we've kind of got a little seed, and everyone's now started to branch and do their stuff. So yeah, myself and Fran started off actually just by doing the YouTube conversations, which is still happening. But away from that, my own stuff, I'm doing a clothing brand, so I'll be launching a clothing brand soon, which should be really good.
Look at the attire, look at the swag, look.
Yeah, my podcast, and yeah, I've just got loads of stuff. I'm busy now. Like, listen, that little free time, I was rocky for the first couple of days because it was a shock, but I'm just feel so blessed. I've got time to do what I need to do. I'm in the right spaces. The right people are coming. Like I got a message yesterday from a lady that has someone incarcerated from the States. And this is the third one I've had now. So it's like, it's just giving me the drive to know that I'm doing the right thing. I'm not doing much at the moment, which is now motivating me. I need to just do more, man. Keep pushing, keep inspiring others, and yeah, just keep going, man.
Don't worry, me and Lee both need fidget spinners. She's managed to use the pen. I've been respecting. It's everything, babes. I know. Listen, I have to try to find a multitude of things to do underneath this thing.
And you did well.
Yeah, I think you did brilliantly. But before we come to the end of this, is there anything that you want to ask me? Because I've had the privilege of being able to ask you all of these things and share the benefit of your experience. It's only fair that I kind of ask you.
Yeah, actually, I think about it. So, first question. So, what was it like for you, like walking into a prison for the first time? And how old was you, if you don't mind me asking?
No, that's okay. So we're talking 2006. So I think I was 25. So I'm nearly 45 now. So it was nearly 20 years ago. I remember just feeling nothing. I was numb because I'd been out on bail. I was never remanded. The case kept getting delayed and delayed. And I think it was like You know, it took about 14, 15 months from the time of the crime to be, you know, so there was all that uncertainty. So, you know, I was working, you know, you get jobs and you're working and you don't really know, you can't plan for the future. But I think I was just disconnected. I remember going there and, you know, they asked you stupid questions. Like, I remember them saying to me, are you angry? Like, you know, do you want to like basically hit anyone? And I remember thinking, like, don't even know what's going on. And, you know, that's me not being aware. Like, if I'd have said, yes, I feel like hitting someone, I would have got my own cell. I didn't understand that. So obviously they're trying to think where to put you. So I got put in like a 5-bedroom dorm. And I just remember phoning my mum, you know, the first, you know, couple hours I was there, you get your phone call or whatever. And I called my mum and I remember her saying to me, just imagine that you're in a holiday camp, but you can't go outside. And I cannot tell you how useful that was. My mum knowing me as she knows me, she knows that I need something to run with. So you've got your daughter as the fly on the wall. I'm in a holiday camp and I can't go outside. Obviously, at the time, I was, you know, in the midst of a really, really horrible domestic abuse relationship. And, you know, my mum was just grateful that I was alive. And it was the first time in a long time, in about 5 years, that I'd had peace.
Yeah.
So, you know, I went from being really numb, disconnected, to just feeling strangely peaceful.
So another question I have then is, why after so long is it still important for you to talk and have discussions about, you know, prison just in general?
I genuinely believe that no woman should be left behind. A bit like Sherelle, I don't think I had as many hang-ups about people. I was a bit more open-minded. Because I was older, Sherelle's quite a bit younger than me. But I was quite open-minded, so, you know, I'd seen loads of substance abuse. You know, I've had that around me. I'd seen all of that, so that wasn't the shock. But I think it was just the amount of, like, you know, the lifers, you know, meeting these women that ordinarily you think, oh my gosh, these people have killed someone, like, oh my gosh, stay away. And meeting these women and realizing that a lot of them were just like me. And the people that I knew, like, these were people that in a lot of strange ways were really good people. They were honest, they didn't steal, you know, they were nice to you. But, you know, they'd been defined and by this one thing, this one terrible thing. And all of these women had a story. And I never ever forgot that. And obviously being a listener, I had the, you know, I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate experience of being able to go around the prisons, you know, and speak to a lot of women, see a lot of the self-harm live. So I'd be speaking to people and they'd be self-harming while I'm speaking. And obviously when you're working for the Samaritans, it's a lot different. So if someone wants to take their life, you can say to them, do you want me to tell someone? And if they say no, you know, you have the choice to sit there with them or leave, but you do not tell people. So I learned about confidentiality, and I learned that, you know, don't be afraid to talk about things that you think people might find painful. So, you know, you feel like people are away from their kids and you don't want to mention it. But, you know, I used to ask women about their kids and see the joy come into their face, you know, just being asked, you know, how's your kid? You know, how's your kid? You know, it really, really stuck with me. And a lot of the women should not have been there. You know, the mental health, which is kind of guided where I've ended up today, ironically, the mental health was catastrophic. It was like, they don't have anyone else to put these women. These women should not be here. And it really, really broke my heart, you know, because I had the opportunity to get out of prison. I was never in trouble before. I've never been in trouble since. But a lot of these women don't have the opportunities, the support systems that I have.
All right, so let's dig into it. So my final question then would be, it's quite a long question. With the experiences that you've had personally, right? And the experiences that you've had with your friends and your families, right? Within the criminal justice system and the way that they've been treated, especially when it comes to mental health, okay? Where do you see the interventions from the time of arrest to the time of release? Where do you see the interventions and what does it look like to you in order for there to be a sense of rehabilitation?
I think rehabilitation...
And it doesn't have to be from organisations.
Yeah,
It's just, what does it look
I
like?
don't think rehabilitation exists. And I think we're not going to find that in the criminal justice system itself. I think the only way is to stop women entering the criminal justice system in the first place. So that's where I think the job that I do, obviously I'm a therapist, but I'm a mental health advocate. Like, getting people and really understanding mental health, because people still, and this is why I'm doing this, despite the fact that I'm not very well and I probably could be doing other things, because people still do not understand mental health. I mean, it's only been about just over a year since they took away the powers from the police to deal with mental health. I've seen people that should be taken to a doctor and looked after and given medication now in the criminal justice system because they are seen to be acting strangely or talking to themselves or speaking very loudly. You know, all things that are non-violent and actually non-threatening. Because if you understand mental health, a lot of the time they're not speaking to anybody in particular. I've seen people be criminalized for mental health, be criminalized for substance abuse and mental health together. So the comorbidities and people just not getting the right support. And I think the minute women enter the criminal justice system, they're fucked because we can't change the system, right? But we can try to make sure that women don't enter that particular system. So, you know, people like you are so important. You know, to a certain degree, organizations like Women in Prison, they fill a bit of a gap, but, you know, there needs to be better support in the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
The minute that they touch the criminal justice system, there's nothing much that can be done because we know that the trauma-informed practice does not exist. They're just creating more trauma.
I've got one more question on that then, because you've just blown my mind with that answer and it's taking me somewhere else. So when it comes to supporting our our community, right? Black women, whether that be black women or black men within the criminal justice system, mostly the ones that are entering, right? Because what I just listening to you, you're saying, yes, you know, they need me, but I also believe that when you're going to court and you have to get pre-sentence reports and stuff, right? And they have psychiatric reports, like there's nothing that represents us. And I feel like, you know, whether it be therapists or mental health advocates, there has to be some kind of representation in that space. And it's not something that needs to be, you can put it in there.
Yeah.
It's they don't have to say that it's a lot, like they don't have to give you that. You can literally be like, this is a service that needs to be.
Yeah. And I'm seeing that more and more. I'm seeing that more and more. So
what I want to know is, do you feel like those things work against us as a community rather than for us in reality, and why?
I think a lot of things that we do as a community works against us. In general, I think there's a lot of shame within the Black community in particular. I mean, there's shame in other communities, I'm sure, but for some reason there's a lot of shame around the things that we've endured and the things that we've suffered. Whereas I think that the shame needs to switch sides. You know, Black people as a race, we've not done a lot to be ashamed of. We've been violated, and I think we're still trying to catch up. You got to remember, slavery in this country was only abolished in 1833, right? It's 2025. It's not that long ago. It's not that many generations. And I think, you know, we need to be judged differently. We need to be judged on the curve. I think trying to compare ourselves to other races that have not had the kind of violations that we've had, the kind of, you know, trauma inflicted that we've had, we're judging ourselves against other people. I think we need to really look at our own community and make the shame switch sides. We've enjoyed a lot of things. A lot of people have been through abuse and we don't want to speak about it. And a lot of people are just surviving. I feel like the survival mentality is really strong, and it's the self-preservation. And I feel like, you know, we've done that to survive, but now we need to change. We've survived now. We're here. We're alive. Something needs to change.
And do you feel like a lot of the incarceration that is like the contribution is a lot of that?
Yeah.
Of shame, embarrassment.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it.
Poverty. You know, Black people have more poverty. They have more mental health. You know, more discrimination. Like, people don't understand the effect that discrimination has on a person's psyche. You know, you keep telling people they're nothing and they're beneath you and all of this. That gets into their psyche. Why should they grow up and give a fuck? Why should they not commit crimes? You've got to look at the psychology of crime. You know, why should I want to be a law-abiding citizen in your society when you treat me less than?
Yes. You know, if you commit a crime, just to add to that, if you commit a crime as a Muslim, you're entitled to a prayer mat. You commit a crime as a Christian, you're entitled to your Bible and your bits, or whatever it is, bring you back to your spiritual. But as a Rasta, they ain't got nothing for me in there. They ain't nothing for me. Again, and I didn't want to touch it like on the basis of, but that's another contribution.
Like, the racism is extensive. They don't even understand black people, much less Rastafarianism.
And literally, cream was an issue. But again, I have, if guys follow me on my TikTok, I have a video on my YouTube that actually has a poem where I speak about wanting to cut my locks off. And it just speaks about the depth of pricing. Because, I'm just going to try and slide this in quickly because, we didn't really touch on the pricing of products. And this is just the institutional stuff. White European products cost 10 times less than our products. And it's a fact. And when you're getting £10 a week to spend, but from the prison, like your earnings, you get £10 and your cream costs £7 and and you got to buy credit and everything else. It's those type of things that create trauma, because trying to re-moisturize my skin for the last 3 years has been a madness.
You cannot separate me from my cream. Even now, I've got some form of cream or moisturizer right next to me. Like, these things need to be spoken about. I'm actually looking forward to that.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, it's been great.
So have you enjoyed doing this? Because I know a lot like me, you're quite a shy person naturally, because obviously I do know you. You're very shy, you're very vibrant, you're very friendly. I mean, you do talk to people, but it takes you a while to warm. You're very shy. So things like this are actually out of your comfort zone. But I just want to thank you so much, because I think it's been amazing. And I'm hoping that a lot of people now, they're looking at the stories behind these women, because there really isn't a lot that we can do. But I think that we should probably, as a society, start challenging ourselves and maybe redefining what we define as vulnerable. Because I think that there's this thing where you have to act a certain way or look a certain way or be a certain race, let's be real, to even be viewed as vulnerable. And that's something that we can't change the system. But if we're working individually at looking at our own unconscious biases and challenging where these things come from, then we can maybe get better outcomes, in the sense that, these members of the jury that are supposed to be our peers, that are not our peers a lot of the time, because these people are not the same race, not the same social, even if they're the same race, they might be from a different class. But, it's not a jury of your peers at all, because some of these people are so far removed from the kind of life that, the ordinary person lives, that they are more of a hindrance than anything. So I think you can't really change the system, but we need to look at what we think of as vulnerable, because I know with my experiences with the hospital and stuff, because I'm not necessarily someone that's going to cry, I might raise my voice or sound irritable when I'm totally emotionally destroyed, and not being seen as vulnerable because I'm not crying.
Yeah, I told Wick that. I told women in prison in my email that I am still vulnerable, and you have to be aware of that. Not because you see me stand strong and sit and talk and no.
Yeah,
But again,
you can be strong and vulnerable at the same time, and this is, this is the thing. It's not a dichotomy. It's not one thing or the other. Like, listen, you can be both. I'm a strong person, but I can also be, have the right to be vulnerable. I have the right to be viewed as someone that is a victim in certain instances. I have the right to be believed in the first instance. I deserve not to, have microaggressions thrown at me. So, so in a lot of instances, I'm even scared to say what I think. Me sometimes even saying my opinion, people find it aggressive. When you say to them, what is aggressive? They cannot tell you what it is. It's just something about the way you said it. Like, so today, Lee, it's been a blast. Like, recording with people that I know and that I really connect with, it helps me feel more comfortable. So just for the purpose of the podcast, just remind people where they can find you. Yeah. I know
Reasoning with Empress Lee.
Yes, you see that, guys? Reasoning with Empress Lee. She's built up quite a following. She's built up quite a following, guys, and she's quite active on that platform. And it's wonderful for me as a friend watching her grow. She sometimes, believe it or not, doubts herself, and I have to remind her what her purpose is and what she's been sent here to do. So, babes, this is what we've got to do for each other. We support each other where we can, because no one else is coming to save us. We've got to do this for ourselves, for our community, and for these women in prison. We're not leaving any woman behind. So with that, guys, hopefully I will catch you in 2 weeks' time. But like I have mentioned before, I do have surgery coming up. I will try to get some things recorded, but I'm a human being and sometimes that may not happen. But what I do think is that with the True Trauma parts 1 and 2, and now with this quite extensive podcast, you have a lot of content to kind of work your way through. And I still have over 100 videos on the platform that, have not been watched. So it will be like having something new for you. So please check it out. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. The only way how we build a community is if we share, because we don't have the huge amounts of money, and we don't have, social media wizards. We just do what we can. And that's what motivates us. If even 1 or 2 people it helps, it's worth it. So Lee, I'm gonna say bye to the people in the podcast, and I'm just gonna speak to you for a moment offline. So I'll see you next time, guys, on the Alphabet Podcast.